Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for having a nice break. Thank you for rejoining today's workshop. Um, I I think the best way to describe our next contribution is to set it into the context of where we are today with assistive technologies. Assistive technologies are used to be, if you like, assigned specifically to meet individual learners' needs, be they sensory or physical or cognitive. Now, we now have a situation whereby um, yet more young people and adults can access these assistive technologies, uh, and they perhaps might not need a formal diagnosis of a condition. As you know, with many young people, many adults, we are now talking about neurodivergence. In other words, we're losing this term neurotypical, which I find almost insulting, but actually acknowledging that everyone learns in different ways. So many young people in our system today who don't have a formal diagnosis of dyslexia or related symptoms actually would hugely benefit from access to some of the emerging technologies today to help with speech to text, text to speech, and generally access to the written word. And I'm absolutely delighted to welcome today Dave from Sensory Readable. Um, he's going to take us on a bit of a journey and describe and very brave man. He's going to do a live demonstration of something that's a new kid on the block, just to see and illustrate to you how some of these assistive technologies are literally being made available at prices that you can't believe, with functionality you can't believe. Dave, I'm going to let you take over and give a bit of a background to where things started and how you've made it happen. Thank you, Dave.
Well, thank you, Marius. Thank you for the introduction, and definitely great to be here. Hello, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. And the webinar, of course, that we're involved in is What's New in AT, and Sensory Readable as a piece of software, which is mostly about text to speech, and I'll go through shortly, is new. It was new in 2023, and it's something I've been involved with, the aspect of speech technology, for a long time, probably over 20 years. I've got grey hair now, but I met for the first time Dr. Nasser Siabi probably over 20 years ago, and Michael and Barry and the guys as well. And on and off I've worked for them. I used to be employed by the company that owned the Dragon Naturally Speaking speech dictation software, which is still legendary, but in those days it was just starting to work really well. So the person, though, truly behind Sensory Readable is my business and technical colleague called Professor Paul Blencorn. Paul can't be here today, but Paul's emeritus professor out of Manchester University. He's a professor of assistive technology and disability. And he also created, our first creation was that we did together was a tool called Claro Read, and we were involved in that until 2020. We set up Claro software. Paul also created Dolphin software, the screen readers for blind, and he even wrote the code for the original Microsoft Narrator, the talking tool inside of Microsoft Windows 2000, I think it was. It's subsequently been taken over by the hordes of excellent engineers at Microsoft, but he was the creator of that. So, but today Paul and I, well, about 4 or 5 years ago, we set up Sensory App House, and we create a lot of Switch accessible apps and educational early learning apps, sensory apps. But last year we created and released Sensory Readable, text-to-speech reader. And I'll just run a video. I am going to do some live demos, but the best way to kick it off is with a short 1 minute 33 video.
Introducing the latest addition to the DSA catalogue, Readable. Essentially a text-to-speech software that enables all forms of text to be accessible to everyone, regardless of reading ability. With the choice of voice, screen view, ruler, customizable toolbar, and with the unique mouse move control, Readable gives the user all the tools to recognize, process, and retain data from text.
Hello, I'm Serena, a voice of Sensory Readable. Sensory Readable is software that converts any text into speech and reads it back to you. You can use Sensory Readable to listen to documents, notes, web pages, or anything else you have written.
I'm Daniel, another voice in Sensory Readable. Sensory Readable supports your writing skills. By listening to your own text, you can spot mistakes, awkward sentences, and unclear expressions.
After the joys of applying for student finance, the thought of filling out yet another form is hardly ideal. But with this guide, the whole process of applying for DSA will seem like a breeze. Sensory Readable can enhance your comprehension skills. By listening to text, you can improve your understanding of complex or unfamiliar topics. You can also retain information better and recall it later. Sensory Readable, the latest in text-to-speech software.
Introducing the latest addition to
I don't think we'll run it again. Once is enough. We'll just get rid of that. Yes, we created a new text-to-speech toolbar, but that was after looking very closely at what was being used around schools, around workplaces, around universities, and because there have been some excellent tools both built into computers and phones and iPads, and there are different tools for doing slightly different jobs. I mean, when I started with text-to-speech software, it was a robot, and then it became a human, and then it's incredible to have seen it appear in so many devices and systems, not just in the car for the sat nav, but obviously on the iPhone, on the Android phones, on the Alexa, on the Siri, both speech recognition and things speaking back, to the point it's everywhere, and really everybody knows what it is, even if they don't know what the technology is. It's a robot voice, it's the computer voice, and certainly younger users are just use it. There's not really an issue around what it does and how to use it. It's there to be used. But we'd noticed on Microsoft Office, or Microsoft Windows in particular, there was some really nice, some built-in tools from Microsoft, which did a good job in each particular application that they work in, but they weren't the most flexible. And so if you're in a PDF file, you're in a Word document, it might be different to a PDF, it might be different to the web browser, it might be different on a Chrome browser than on a Chromebook, and everything was a little bit different. So we had an attempt to do something new. So I'm going to try and cover in 30 minutes or less or more, depending how I go on, is looking at how we can deploy text-to-speech in the school and in the college on a day-to-day basis, using one key area of documents, Microsoft documents, let's call them, maybe Microsoft Word documents, not only Word, but notepads and things like that. So for typing, listening back, working in that environment, to a second environment, which is what I would say is the reading environment of PDF files. So much data and information held in the PDF format, and then an unending amount of data held in web pages accessed through a web browser, be it Edge browser, which is our current favorite because of its accessibility, but also Chrome browser is very similar. So it's these three areas, and I'm going to look in a little bit more detail about how computer readers are allowed to be used and are being used both in the classroom, but more importantly in exams. In the exam situation, we'll look at the rules a little bit around that, and I'll show you some new software that hopefully gives a new alternative if a school is looking to invest in this area or to upgrade in this area. So here I have a Microsoft Word document, and at the top here I have what we call the Readable toolbar. It's just docked out of the way at the moment. I'm just going to bring that down a little bit so that it's more central for this purpose. I'll put it into manual mode. We could also have it vertically set as well, but I'll have it in the horizontal setting for that. So we have a toolbar here. I've got Microsoft Word here. It pops open with a few more buttons when it's in Microsoft Word, and I can just move my mouse anywhere. I'm going to press my Control key. You can't see, but I'm using my left hand to press my Control key.
Sensory Readable supports your writing skills. By listening to your own text, you can spot mistakes.
Click my mouse or press Control key again. So wherever I move,
Sensory Readable increases your productivity and.
Of course, one normal way, which a lot of people might be familiar with, is you just select some text as well, if you want.
Hello, I'm Serena, a voice of Sensory Readable. Sensory Readable is software that can.
So then if I just jump across to a couple of other text environments, we've got the free included Notepad here. You may all have used that for making notes, but this just speaks also.
Sensory Readable supports your writing skills. By listening to your own text, you can spot mistakes.
I can also just click somewhere and press the play button.
Sensory Readable can enhance your comprehension skills.
And if I go into another free program that's still on the Windows computer, most people don't know this, but this is the famous WordPad, been around a long time. And this works just the same.
Sensory Readable supports your writing skills.
And if I wanted to change the colors of that highlighting, I just go into the speech tab, change the color. A nice subtle cyan underline for a change.
Sensory Readable supports your writing skills.
So what you might have already twigged is that across all those writing environments, and as many writing environments, we have created a new methodology of underlining in synchronization the word along with the spoken word in as many areas as we can. I'll show you shortly how that also works in Edge, email, quite a wide range of applications now, and an increasing range as things go on. Now, one of the things I think is well established, again, 20 years ago or so, I did some reading around and researching to understand how text-to-speech is being used with academic backing in the reading support scenario. And much more research has been done in the last sort of 5 to 10 years. And I think it's become well established. I'm not going to reference that research, but I'm happy to provide some links later if there's any questions. I can pull those out for you. But I think it's been quite well established that seeing a document, reading a document, or attempting to read a document and hearing it being spoken simultaneously and parallel bimodal reading does help people struggling with reading. It might not help fluent readers, faster readers, but it certainly does help struggling readers. And it's not really and you could do it with a Microsoft Word document and a computer voice, or we may all reflect back to sitting around, knees crossed in the classroom, listening to a book and following along with that book, listening to that book being read by a teacher or a helper. So it's kind of quite core level. And so using this technique of text-to-speech, which is widespread within reading and writing support, is a valid alternative, and there are more and more options for doing this. So that's a sort of an initial demo, really sort of gone through. I'm just going to switch across to a PDF file. We have within Sensory Readable our own PDF reader, which is here. I'll just get rid of that. Just minimize that. Turned it into silent mode, but I'll put the speech back onto the PDF reader. So this is just a regular PDF reader. It's a GCSE paper. It's provided by AQA, obviously, a past paper. With this reader, this doesn't need to be connected to the internet. I am now, of course, because I'm on the Zoom call, but the voices that we're speaking with Readable and with this part of Readable are locally installed voices, all my Microsoft voices and a number of other UK English voices available. But this is quite straightforward. I'm just going to move my mouse over something and it speaks.
Week.
And it underlines that word. And it
Never.
it. I'm just at the moment just speaking the word because maybe somebody is struggling with reading but just needs additional word support. Or I can have a whole block read to us if I want to listen through that section.
2 decades into the insomnia, at the age of 30, I was waking up, if I had fallen asleep at all, with sore eyes, itchy skin and a high-pitched sense of mental hysteria, which, at its worst, made me feel as though my life was unraveling.
So that would speak and highlight. I can change things like the colours of the underline highlighting, and we can turn on or off the highlighting and change the voice's volume and speed, of course. I can also just select a massive amount of text. It'll just
2 decades into the insomnia, at the age of 30, I was waking up, if I had fallen asleep.
I'll start speaking until I press the control button or click my mouse.
So when I came across a magazine article mentioning that autogenic training.
So this is an example of making PDFs speak in a more independent way and more accessible in an independent way. And I'll switch to the third area, which I would say I mentioned as being sort of web content, really. I've got quite a few web tabs open here. It's rather interesting access arrangements for GCSE official statistics, but if I want to listen to this, I've got my Readable toolbar still running. It's just minimized down here. I'll just move my mouse over, press the control button.
This release provides information on the number of access arrangements approved for GCSE as and A level in English. This release provides information.
So what we liked about this new method of speaking under the mouse is that on a web page, you've obviously got a lot of data. You've got, not on this one, but you would have adverts, you'll have different articles, and you're not going to want to read from top to bottom. It's just impractical. But now, if I want to just read that sentence,
computer reader or reader access,
I just move in and I press my control button. So we're reading under the mouse. We've made a nice way to read under the mouse in the same way in all programs. So in most programs and in most applications that are accessible, that have accessible text, they will just speak. So, have a quick drink. I've got this toolbar that my Zoom toolbar is covering all my tabs. It's rather annoying. I can't see them. There we go. Yeah. Okay, so there's this famous document that some of you might be familiar with. I'm far too familiar with it, but I'm nowhere near understanding every part of it, a long way from it. But Access Arrangements and Reasonable Adjustments, published by JCQ. This is the rule book, isn't it, for examination adjustments and access arrangements. I'm just going to open part of this document in my PDF reader, which I've got open. It's in silent mode, so that's good. So this is the latest release of this information. Sorry if it's too boring, but I'm going to zoom in on one particular section. This is section 5.5, computer reader and readers. What page was it? 43. Yeah. So I've got page 43 down here that I've snipped out. So for a few years now, computer readers have been allowed to be used in GCSE A-level examinations. There's not really, there's been some basic rules about using a computer reader, but equally human readers, when it refers to reader, it actually means, I think it means human readers have been available to be there for helping a student for a lot longer. But a computer reader basically can't be connected to the internet for obvious reasons. If it needs to go to the internet to speak its voice, then what else can be obtained through access to the internet? Obviously, they're locked down in an examination situation. So the voices have to be local. The tools have to be able to be used for the work, during revision, during normal course of activity. So computer software which accurately reads out text but does not decode or interpret the paper may be used as a computer reader. It is the centre's responsibility to ensure that computer use does not contain any software that the candidate can access, which might assist him or her with the examination. So that used to refer directly to internet access, I believe. And a computer reader is allowed in papers that do test reading. So one of the useful things about the choice of a computer reader for a student is that the human reader can still be there, or an invigilator, a reader may be asked to read a word out if the computer reader isn't able to handle a particular word. So it's like a layered solution. The computer reader gives the student a lot more independence. They put their headphones on. They've got their paper in front of them, which is normally a PDF paper. I'll come on to that in a second, but we all realize it's PDF when requested. A student can listen to a question as many times as they want without feeling any impact. The computer doesn't judge how many times they repeat the listening. In fact, probably the more times the better. I always read the question and perhaps always listen to it a number of times. We've got the ability just to read the odd word, read the odd sentence, read the whole question, really. You know, that's there. I demonstrated that to you already. Now, it says here that where an application for a computer reader is approved, it's recommended that the exam centre orders the non-interactive electronic question paper. So I'm not involved in the administration of doing this, but if we go across and look at some of the statistics, which I pulled up, it's a little bit out of date. These ones from the from Ofqual back to this web page, but we've got in 2021 to 2022, requests for a computer reader or a reader were at 114,725, so grown steadily over the years. I believe it's grown further since then. The largest request, of course, is 25% extra time, but there's quite a lot of computer readers being requested. 22.8% of all requests. However, it doesn't really split down in that figure. It doesn't split down how many are requested for computer readers or how many are requested for human readers, but that is provided further down here, or there is a sort of indicator further down this page where it talks about the number of modified paper requests. So a normal standard paper is printed. So a modified paper will be a PDF file or a large print or even a braille. So 38% of the requests are for non-interactive electronic PDF files. Another 33 are 18-point bold papers and then 24-point bold papers. Now, interestingly, when I've received these from Pearson, I have a big sample folder from Pearson. These are delivered still as PDF files, even though they are plain text. I'll show you one shortly. And then there's a couple of other formats and braille and tactile with diagrams. So if we go back to my PDF reader, I think I've already shown you, we've got this is a non-interactive PDF paper supplied by AQA, and this can just be spoken. If we go and look at an 18-point paper, it is still a PDF file. I did try to open this in Microsoft Word, actually. I did, because you can open PDFs in Microsoft Word, so I tried to do that before, and you do lose a bit of layout. It sort of flows over into pages, and you get this kind of odd glitch in it. So it is going to stay in the PDF area. So if it's a PDF file like this, and it's large print, then Readable and a few other tools can be used to make that speak. Turn the voice on now. I did that, yeah.
Thematic. Historic.
It's just reading the words. I can also change the background color mode, or the background sort of offset color, which is maybe a grey one. So there are obviously some possibilities for changing the background color of the PDF and having it spoken. Okay, so going back to the numbers, there are quite a lot of requests for computer readers and human readers. Now, one of the things about the computer readers, as has been told to me, is that they kind of always turn up. There's a big issue, isn't there, where there aren't enough human readers to help the humans be read to in the exams, and that causes no end of disruption through illness, sickness, overload, whatever, whereas the computer reader does tend to be there and just needs to be set up for the group beforehand. The other aspect, I suppose, is that the computer reader is consistent, it's emotionless, so it will read out the question without too much emotion, maybe enough to make it put some prosody in its voice, but not too leading in terms of anything, because it doesn't know what it's talking about. It's just reading out the words. I think there is another situation. Well, I know there is another situation if we go back to the JCQ document, whereby a scenario for using word processors, because many times word processors can be applied for, well, they don't need to be applied for. I think they can be used if it's normal way of working. And actually, in this case, the spelling and the grammar check can sometimes be turned on if it's being used instead of a scribe, or as a way of scribing the text, writing the text. But the word processor is quite interesting because you can choose whichever word processor you want. And let's say it'll be Microsoft Word, but it might not be. But you can, there is a reference whereby you can use text-to-speech within on the word processor. Just need to find that area. Just confirm. I can't just actually pull it down at the moment, but there is a point somewhere where it says the text-to-speech software can be used, so you can read back and listen back to your writing, and so you would likely use a tool like Readable, perhaps, to do that. And listen back to what's been written, proofreading before it goes in, if you've got some extra time, certainly. Okay. I think it's important to be able to start to distribute this sort of software into the schools and the colleges without any cost. I mean, we've organised to make Sensory Readable available for all schools to evaluate and to use and to experiment with through Microlink. And Microlink have got some fabulous programs in the past, and a new one coming online in the future called Be That Teacher. I'm sure Marius would outline that program. But we hope to have Sensory Readable as part of that next phase of that program when it rolls through. Is that something, Marius, you'd like to comment on at this point?
Yes, Dave. Fantastic for you. What a fantastic offer. So essentially, what you're saying is that if we have we have something like, I think at the moment, about 200 schools who are participating in our Be That Teacher program. So basically, your offer is a free copy for them to evaluate. Is that right?
That's most definitely correct. I mean, that is what we're offering to actually all schools in respect of once we start to put the word out there and so that it can be evaluated, it can be assessed. It's important, isn't it, that students get to use the software and evaluate the software, because it has to become a normal way of working.
Absolutely.
And a really effective way to do that, I think, is through your Be That Teacher program, at least we can access those schools and get some serious work done before any money changes hands. Really, it's not really an issue. We're trying to optimize the text to speech to the tasks required. And in this case, obviously, I've waffled on about exams because they are important, and I use the word waffle on purpose. It's because there are a lot of words, a lot of issues to be handled by all the Senkos and all of the exam arrangement officers.
Yes.
I'm just dealing with one small area, but it's large in terms of hours expended, in terms of teacher support hours. And if we can relieve those teachers to be teaching or those support staff to be supporting, instead of sort of locked up for hours on just in order to be a reader, that's good. And I think also it's about teaching and all of the students learning to use that technology, as you've highlighted already. When they move into the workplace, there won't be a human sat there reading the instructions for them. They will be using their phone, they will be using an iPad, they'll be using their computer to do that reading. So getting that independence through the exam process is probably a priority if needed.
Now, just help me clarify something here, Dave. One of the hardest things, I think, for some screen readers to do is to work perhaps with a maths paper.
Yeah.
Where a child has got a graphic and and there's labels on that graphic, and those labels can be incredibly difficult to decode. From the demonstration you gave me, Sensory Readable gets around that because you can highlight the bits you want to read out, correct?
Well, you can highlight the bits you can read out, anything that you want. They're all accessible. All these PDF files that are supplied by the exam boards are fully accessible, so you can just highlight it and it will speak it out. I think, however, we've got to think about almost the name of this technology is called text to speech. So it's predominantly created for words. It does do numbers. It's very intelligent about how it can do numbers. But when you're looking at maths and equations and symbols and maybe graphical labels and geography and things like that, this technology doesn't provide for that, I would say, to be safe.
Yes.
So this is where, indeed, that situation that I highlighted earlier about being able to still talk to the human to help decode labels on a map or icons on a map, or help within the bounds of the allowed scope, help with the mathematics and with formulae. I mean, sometimes a lot of work has been done in terms of translating and interpreting a symbol to a sequence of words, squared, and sequence of, but it's not really consistent enough, and the exam papers aren't presented that way. They're presented as squiggles, or letters. So it's a good point.
I was with a workshop with Nick Late from JCQ about a month ago, and they've got special regs now for things like geography A-level papers where the examiner will be able to describe the colours on the map to match with the words that for those students that have visual acuity problems. So,
absolutely.
It's not the panacea for everything, because of course there are those controls, and reading complex algebraic equations, for example. I can see why there's some limitations for all speech.
I mean, I would suggest that the right solution is having the human there. I think that when you look at those numbers in total of over 100,000 per year requesting such support, and bearing in mind the range of difficulties and disabilities that students are experiencing in order to receive that support, a small percentage of that are visual issues, and need to be voiced more fully, like you say, like Nick might have mentioned, in terms of describing content or in an audio form for a low vision or for a blind student. But a lot of people can see who are getting computer readers. So this is really dealing with the reading difficulty part of it, and that's about reading text. There are other issues around that edge, but anything that we can do to help with that is good.
It would be lovely if you could join me on Tuesday, I think it's the 17th of March. It's during Neurodiversity Week.
Oh, okay, great.
And we have Professor Nancy from Genius Within, who wrote a very controversial article for Forbes magazine, based on our Be That Teacher program, really,
Oh, okay.
stimulated by it. And she basically posited the question: is traditional literacy dead? And a thesis around it was the fact that, well, she had a terrible time at school because no one recognised her dyslexia. But if we look at the way the workplace is changing, with so much now through video conferencing, through even podcasts, through the spoken word,
Mhm.
through interactive video, the actual written word is part of a kind of multimodal
Mm.
communication scheme.
Mm.
And the other thing that struck me was talking to a very, very visual impaired guy who is quite up high up in his university. When he uses text to speech, he does it 20 times faster
Mm.
than I could possibly do it.
Yes.
20 times faster. And he
Yeah.
processes it at that speed and he answers the questions
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
I could never understand. You know,
I
and I
mean,
think,
that is possible. That speed listening, and I've met plenty of people who do that and turn it up to
yeah,
very fast speeds. And these may be low vision or blind users, but they may equally be sighted users who can get through the content quicker that way. But I mean, it is interesting what you're saying, isn't it? Because there is this whole mix of content in real life and in education. You know, like you say, podcasts, video,
yes,
small elements, but there's one area where uh, most people have to write content, and that content is generally published somewhere.
yes,
Um, Proofreading, there's a lot, spell checkers and grammar checkers. Microsoft Office is great, and you've got ChatGPT and AI coming to improve that further. I mean, that's going to be fabulous, but you still have to listen to something. You know, the proofreading term, I believe, came from the early newspapers where people were employed as a proofreader, and they
yeah,
would sit there and read the article to the writer, and that would uncover any of the issues around grammar, style, and obviously errors. And the computer does that for me now. I use that quite regularly, but I don't have any issues with reading day to day. So I did a document, and there was about 20 issues I think
yeah.
that I'd spotted, and
And I think what you've just said, we work very closely with a secondary school in Southampton called Cantel School, and one of the teachers there, lovely guy Paul, he actually encourages his entire class to text to speech their assignments. Everyone does it with headphones on at the same time.
yeah,
Two reasons. First of all, sense check and grammar check everything that they've written. But secondly, it also means that the neurodivergent children who rely on it aren't singled out. They don't feel
yeah,
different.
yeah,
It's a really inclusive thing.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
What's the youngest age you feel that a child could use um, sensory readable?
That's a good question.
While you're thinking, I'm going to show you a video. All right.
Feel free.
A
Yeah,
very. This was taken during. These were some of the feedbacks we got from our Be That Teacher program
great.
of colleagues using it in year one in primary. That's almost like reception age, and
Love it. Yeah.
in year two. So while you're thinking, here we go. It's a brilliant. It's lovely 3 minutes. Absolutely brilliant.
It's been really good for us here. I've been looking at a couple of children in particular. I've been in and out of classes that I wouldn't normally have so much contact with this week. And there is a boy in one of our year 4 classes who really struggles with reading. And like some of you have said earlier, Kim, I think you said it, who's just so demoralised when he can see other people doing things that he can't. And he said, how comes they've all finished and I've not even started? And I said to him on that day, that's because, you find it quite hard to read those things. How would you feel if you had something to help you with the reading? And he was like, what? So when we then downloaded the visual app, I said to him, pick a book. And he said, "What do you mean?" I said, "Which book on there do you really want to read that you've never been able to read?" And he said, "That one." And he picked the book, and I gave him the tablet, and he put it over it, and he went, "Oh my gosh, it's reading it to me. This is amazing. This is the best thing ever. Where can I get this? Can I have this on my tablet at home?" So he was already thinking about how he can use that beyond school. And I just thought that was incredible. And I said to him, I teach mixed reception year 1 class. I had a chat with a parent of a little boy who's got pathological demand avoidance and autism. He's also post looked after, so he's got attachment disorders and
Wow.
issues around trauma. Really complex little boy who's he's probably 4-word sentences we're working at, but loves books, loves books. That's his gateway to everything, is a book. So we use the Seeing AI. He's got his own iPad. And I was talking to Mum said he just wants to read but knows he can't, and she sensed that frustration at home. So then the other day he was having kind of a meltdown, really dysregulated, and I just kind of went and got the iPad and started scanning it over a book he was reading, and he just stopped and he said, "Foxes in the snow." It says "foxes in the snow," and that just totally calmed him down. What I would say the challenges with that, because of his maturity,
Yes.
it's kind of holding it really still.
Yes.
And he got so excited because of his autism. He then was just kind of wanting to. It was like a magic tool that spoke to him.
Yes.
It needs to be planned into really careful situations. But when I shared it with Mum's downloaded it on her phone. Mum's like, this is brilliant. I knew there were things out there like this, but didn't realize they were so easy and free and on the iPhone. So I think when she's had times when she's taken him out somewhere and she's struggled to engage him in things, it's straight away the phone. But just seeing him go, "It says foxes in the snow," and he's going, "Mrs. Gilhilly, do it again." Like you wanted on the next page. So that's kind of 2 little snippets of success, but where I can see.
It's really lovely, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, they're great. I think if I just share my screen one last time, Marius, then I can answer your question actually quite precisely, or a little bit more precisely. I think that there is I'll just refer to a new document that came out, which I don't intend to get into, but it's from the DFE for meeting digital and technology standards in schools and colleges. And this refers to the inclusion of hardware and software that's for having these accessibility features, text-to-speech, caption, zoom, and translation. We're probably all aware of that. Now, all text-to-speech tools, or most text-to-speech tools, including Readable, do have, always generally have what's called a key echo character. So this will, if we put it onto Word and I type something on my word processor or wherever, it speaks the word when you press the space bar. And I do know that year 1 and year 2 have great fun assembling words with the keyboard in the IT room, and using tools like this, because you just hide it away. It types every character, it speaks the word, and obviously it can listen to anything that somebody else has typed. So I would say it's interactive, it's audio, it's sound, it's not really an assistive technology. It just speaks those QWERTY characters. One of the greatest pieces of assistive technology ever was the QWERTY keyboard, I'm led to believe. Somebody told me, who was very wise. That was for sure a revolution. So it might not be the best answer, but it's hopefully finishes. So thanks for putting up with my my rambling and jumping around, and it's been really great to have an audience. If anybody wants to have, or please drop me an email. Marius will send the details around, or I'll drop Marius an email for a copy of the software for Sensory Readable, and then you can have it and experiment it.
That's absolutely sort of wonderful, sir. If you wouldn't mind stop sharing now, that would be wonderful. And thank you,
no problem. Thank you very much,
Dave. Thank you for your time, but also the offer of a free copy for schools to play with, to get to know, and to see if it will work for their children. And I think it's going to be a growing area. I think 100,000 kids is only the tip of the iceberg. I think the British Dyslexia Association say that 70% of young people with degrees of dyslexia go unnoticed in schools. So I think these tools are here to stay.
Right,
Wonderful,
great. Thanks
guys.
for your time, everybody.
Thank you.